Hi everyone, I'm here to show you my backyard today and just to take you on a nature hike. So let's switch and show you the backyard. And then I'm also going to take you into my front yard later on. It also goes way back there where we have our vegetable garden and everything else. We have a huge backyard. Here is part of my front yard, and as you can see down there is a creek, and also on the other side of my house is another part of the front yard, which I will show you in a second. So here is the rest of my front yard, and the creek continues on this side as well over here. And then we have a lot of the woods back there that we don't really go into. And then here's the other part of the backyard that you weren't able to see before. Okay, so here is a bee and a clover, and this is considered mutualism because both of them are benefiting, and it's also considered pollination because the bee is pollinating the flower and then dispersing the pollen to other flowers so more grow. This creek in my front yard used to be filled completely with tadpoles and frogs, etc., along with fish, but a couple years ago wild cats migrated into our neighborhood, and so ever since then there's few and far between tadpoles, frogs, and fish. And this is considered an invasive species because it causes ecological harm or economic harm in a new environment where it is not native. So that is what a cat was doing. Well, cats plural. Since there are no longer any frogs or few frogs here, these water strikers have been increasing in population. Before the cats came into our neighborhood, the frogs, tadpoles, and fish would eat these water strikers, but now these water strikers are in fact flourishing due to the fact that there are less frogs, tadpoles, and fish in the creek. Okay, so we have hawks in our front yard and backyard, and this is a habitat that would be great for snakes and small rodents to hide and stay in so that they are away from hawks and other large animals that could possibly eat them. And a habitat is a natural home or environment of an animal, plant, or other organism. So if you look closely, you can see that this is the actual tree here. And then this is an invasive species of a plant that is invading the area of this plant. So it is causing harm to it and growing all around it. So this area over here is all completely wooded and forest type area, and we don't even go in there. But this would be a perfect example of an ecosystem, which is a biological community of interacting organisms and its physical environment. So you would have foxes, deer, raccoons, other small rodents, etc. that live in there and flourish, including birds and squirrels and all that kind of thing. So it's perfect. So this is a rose bush, and as you can see, something is eating away at it. It might be some ladybugs or some caterpillars, I'm not quite sure, but this would be an example of prey versus predator. And if you can see closely, there are thorns to protect this, but obviously something is still getting to it and eating it. So this is prey versus predator.
Just possible.
Okay, so if you can see this is a population of ants. And this would be all organisms of the same group or species who live in a particular area. So this is just an example of that then, the population, as you can see. Okay, here is a worm, and this is considered to be a decomposer, right there. And a decomposer is an organism that breaks down dead or decaying organisms. Okay, here is a frog that we found. And this is a good example of community because it's right next to our vegetables that we are growing. It's also an example of ecology because of the relations between this organism and the physical surrounding. I can't believe we found one. Okay, so this is our vegetable garden that we have growing right now. There's squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelon, etc. And this would be an example of producers that make their own food. So they're self-sufficient, self-sustaining. Okay, so this whole area in front of me used to be where our playground was until we took it down a couple weeks ago. As you can see, there's already plants growing into where the playground was, and this would be considered secondary succession because the grass and everything else is growing back after being invaded by us humans, which would be the invasive species that caused the grass to not grow in the first place. So this is my puppy Whiskey, and he is considered an omnivore because he eats plants and meat, and he's also considered a secondary consumer because he eats primarily, consumes other primary consumers for energy, either carnivores or omnivores. So he's considered a secondary consumer.